Tonight, the dark side of fitness. Health experts warn performance-enhancing drug abuse is putting lives in danger.
We are now where we were smoking 20 years after cigarettes were introduced. You know, it's 20, 30 years into it, and we're now starting to see the first signs of potential long-term cardiovascular damage.
Also making the headlines, an investigation into a fatal explosion in a residential Edinburgh street continues as a fault in the gas network is ruled out. It's take-off for Edinburgh Zoo's pandas as they begin their journey back to China.
And planes, trains and automobiles, the Tartan Army are planning their German adventure.
I'm Vanessa Kennedy in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. An increasing number of people could be putting their lives in danger by abusing unregulated steroids. That's a warning from health experts who say it's a particular problem for men over the age of 35 using the drugs as part of a testosterone replacement therapy without a prescription.
STV News has been granted special access to one of just 2 performance-enhancing drug clinics in Scotland. Fitness experts are warning more people are being targeted by social media videos promoting the unregulated substance as a quick fix to improve their physique. Ollie Dickinson reports.
This room, not far from Glasgow city centre, is at the front line of tackling Scotland's complex relationship with these performance-enhancing drugs like steroids, human growth hormone and peptides. For years associated with the dark corners of shady gyms and elite bodybuilders, they're now being pushed hard in the mainstream with social media at its heart.
We do see people coming into the clinic and they'll show us pictures from social media and say, this is my overall aim, I want to get looking like this person. You know, so I've no doubt that the images in social media and what's portrayed is certainly driving a lot of people's expectations.
Many of these substances are made in underground labs, unregulated and untested. They almost always have severe side effects, from debilitating acne that can become infected to the development of breast tissue that has to be surgically removed.
There might be a nice shiny product where a scratch panel or hologram are actually made in an underground lab. It may be a totally different substance that's in the ampule or vial than is advertised in the label. Or the milligrams per millilitre may be totally different than advertised as well. The majority of the complications and side effects we see are actually post-cycle. You know, they often have no energy, they feel very down, bordering on depression. You know, no sex drive at all.
The largest number of users at the clinic are over 40. A number of those will have used for well over a decade. Whilst most use for fitness, there is a worrying trend emerging of DIY testosterone replacement therapy, or TRT. It should be carefully prescribed by a doctor and can have catastrophic health impacts if it's abused.
The dose of steroids are taken far exceed what we would expect to be prescribed medically for testosterone replacement therapy. We are now where we were smoking 20 years after cigarettes were introduced. You know, it's 20, 30 years into it, and we're now starting to see the first signs of potential long-term cardiovascular damage.
After seeing his best friend nearly die from steroid abuse, Cale Scott is lobbying Parliament to make a change.
One of my old friends from school ended up in hospital with an aortic valve rupture, and he didn't really know about the downsides of steroids or, you know, how severe the side effects could be. So I've put in a petition asking for the Scottish Government to make a sort of public health campaign, raising awareness, mostly for sort of 16 to 25-year-olds, but also for everyone, just to let people know what the side effects for steroids are.
Working with young people, he's seen firsthand the pressure around body image that is driving them towards steroids.
There's a lot of pressure, especially for sort of young teenagers, to sort of have, I guess, the superhero look, like the Marvel, the DC. And if you go on social media, you'll get a lot of fitness influencers, all with really great looking bodies, talking about how it's fine and, you know, this is a great way to build muscle, get the look that you want. And there's no counter argument about what are the risks, you know.
Nice. Tuck. Control.
Scott Robertson has been a personal trainer for the last decade. He admits to using steroids when he was younger.
Definitely mistakes I've made along the way. So initially took stuff when I was like 17, 18, which I definitely shouldn't have done. That was, again, influenced by my mates were doing it. Like, same idea, a guy in the gym recommended it. Dosage that I took at the time was definitely more than what people should be taking at that age, because you shouldn't be taking anything.
Scott has seen a huge rise in the number of people asking to use the drugs when training.
My first protocol with any individual that comes on board with that is, let's not even have that as a conversation, at least for now. Let's focus on all the basics first, so getting your nutrition right, making sure you can train properly, making sure you can train intensely. It's something I'll coach clients on if it's something they're adamant they want to go down, because I'd rather they at least do it safely if I can't persuade them just to stay away from that as well. So it's something I need to be a little bit more aware of and make people comfortable that if they are taking these kind of drugs, that they can tell me that, so I can get them into a more safer position.
But he accepts in an industry driven by results, not all have the same view.
Feel bad for these people that are getting pushed onto these things and are not aware of like the negative effects it could have. Like, they should be educating, they should be the ones making that decision rather than a coach pushing them onto that so they can get an extra transformation for their business. It's not fair.
Steroids are a Class C drug, but having them for personal use isn't illegal. And as they move further into the mainstream, the calls for education and awareness around their impact are growing.
Well, Ollie joins us in the studio now. So, Ollie, what have the social media companies have been saying about this?
Well, TikTok, who we featured quite heavily in the report there, have told us that any content that depicts, promotes or offers the purchase, sale or trade of any illicit or illegal substances which anabolic steroids would fall under clearly violate their community guidelines and as such would be removed from the platform. They also say they're taking a close look at the specific videos and accounts that we flagged to them as part of the TV and online investigation that we've been performing. But as of 6 o'clock, I took a quick look on my phone before I came into the studio. Many of those videos remain on the platform. Now, as for Meta, who control Facebook and Instagram, they've told us much the same thing. They're pointing us to what they say are clear guidelines on advertising restricted goods.
And we'll have more on this in Scotland tonight. Ollie, thank you.
The Health and Safety Executive has confirmed that it was a gas explosion which flattened 2 homes in Edinburgh, killing 1 man and injuring 2 other people. The incident happened on Friday night in the Babberton area of the city, but the blast was heard for miles. Well, our reporter Lewis Mitchie is at the scene. Lewis, what more do we know at this stage?
Well, an investigation is still ongoing as to exactly what happened on this quiet residential street on Friday. But what we do know now is that it was a gas explosion that caused this devastation here. Now, the Health and Safety Executive say that relates to an internal installation within the property, not the wider network. Now, many families still aren't allowed back into their homes here after what happened, but those who are being told that they can safely use their gas supply now. And in terms of, it's still unknown exactly the circumstances that led to what happened here, but experts say the situation could have developed very quickly and without any of the residents within being aware.
What generally happens in this sort of incident is there's some failure of like a leaky pipe, or maybe a gas system was turned on and it wasn't ignited immediately and it was left. And you get an accumulation of methane gas or natural gas in the property. You've got an extended period of time where the gas can accumulate until it spreads, until it finds something. That something could be a candle somewhere. It could be somebody flicking a light switch, and you get a spark.
And Lewis, is there any update on the people involved in the explosion?
Well, as we know, sadly, an 84-year-old man named locally as James Smith did die in this incident. Miraculously, 2 other people A man who in his 50s and a woman in her 40s were pulled from the rubble here. We don't have an update on their condition as of yet, but around £25,000 has been raised online for the pair of them. A neighbour who organised that has said they've lost everything. Other residents who are still out of their homes, they face a long and nervous wait to find out when they'll get back in with Christmas looming.
OK, Lewis, thanks for that. 12 years after they arrived here in a blaze of publicity, Edinburgh Zoo's pair of pandas have begun their journey back home to China in a much more low-key series of events.
And while their presence in Scotland failed to produce the much-hoped-for cubs, the zoo insists the whole exercise has been worthwhile. A senior reporter, Gordon Cree, watched their departure.
The flight was an hour and a half late in taking off and the weather conditions were miserable, but at 20 to 2 this afternoon, aboard a China Southern Cargo Boeing 777, the pandas left Scottish soil.
Coming back up here now where it is empty and quiet and where there's normally so many people around just being so excited about seeing pandas, yeah, it's really quite sad.
After a huge amount of planning, the journey home began early this morning when crates carrying Tian Tian and Yang Huang were loaded up at the zoo, with just a few signs of the cargo inside. The zoo's own blacksmith custom-built the crates, which include removable screens so keepers can monitor the pandas on board the plane. After arriving at the airport, they were loaded onto the aircraft, along with an extensive supply of bamboo for the 13-hour flight. Far from the fanfare that surrounded their arrival with a panda-branded plane and dignitaries here to meet them, you'd have to say the departure today is pretty low-key, perhaps reflective of the fact their stay in Scotland hasn't entirely gone to plan.
You know, cubs would have been wonderful. They'd have been great for Tian Tian. They would have been great for people to see. But you know, cubs was not the be-all and end-all, and that's not what's going to save the species. What is the legacy of these pandas is the knowledge that we've gained about pandas, about their biology, about their fertility, about their husbandry, about their veterinary care, all of which we've been able to share with our Chinese colleagues, that they can use that knowledge in their breeding centres and translate it for caring for pandas in the field, in the wild.
The pandas have been in quarantine for several weeks ahead of this trip to try to prevent them catching any diseases, and they're likely to face a further period in isolation once they arrive back in China. While the zoo says they've been hugely popular and loved attractions which have inspired people, animal welfare groups say panda diplomacy, where they're lent or gifted to countries to try to improve international relations, is an outdated concept.
The idea of animals as entertainment in general, we do think attitudes are changing. We do think people are starting to realise that keeping these animals in enclosures for the entertainment of humans, for people to just come and look at them when it's not in their best interest, when it cannot meet their needs like it would in a wild environment. So we hope people will continue to reflect upon this. And yes, we support a day when animals will not be held captive in zoo environments.
In their enclosure this afternoon, something to remember the pandas by before this space is cleared for whatever comes next. Gordon Cree, STV News, Edinburgh.
Families are being urged to avoid buying puppies online as Christmas presents, amid fears the money could be used by criminal gangs. Illegally bred puppies sold through a black market trade have been identified as a significant source of revenue for serious organised crime gangs.
Many animals later suffer severe health problems, many too ill to survive their first few months. Caitlin Hutchison reports.
They're just one of the thousands of families who have suffered puppy farm heartbreak. And while Stephen and Nicola say they've been given a second chance with the latest addition to the family, they're still devastated after the shock death of their beloved pup last year, a beautiful Cocker Spaniel thought to be barely 8 weeks old.
That 24-hour period of having her is like the only love she's ever received. And I think that's a hard thing as well when people ask about her. We're like, we don't have a name because that's how quick everything happened. It literally was overnight.
They say they realised something was wrong almost immediately.
You could tell kind of straight away after they left, like the dog it couldn't focus on you.
It was lifeless.
The next morning we got it into the vets and straight away they said it's tested for parva, and we didn't have a clue what parva was. And within a couple hours for that, the puppy had to be put down.
Illegal breeders are known to go to great lengths to make their business seem trustworthy, some even hiring Airbnbs to trick buyers into thinking the pets have come from clean homes. This was the veterinary card Nicola received from the sellers claiming the dog was in good health, but it turned out to be fake.
There's 3 articles for the same type of dog. They're really, really well rehearsed. They knew the questions that people were probably going to ask, and they knew the answers.
Obviously the worst part is the dog passing, but it's the vet bills, the money you lose paying on it.
The market for illegally traded puppies is estimated at around £13 million. And now the Crown Office is concerned unauthorised puppy dealers could be funding drugs traffickers.
Quite often these are run by organised criminals that have moved away from dealing mid-level drugs, etc. And the reason for that is the profit's the exact same. Vast amounts of money can be made. If you want to buy a pup, do your homework, go and visit the pup in its home environment or at the breeder's establishment. If you're buying from a registered breeder, they'll give you their licence number. You can contact the local authority and check that they are licensed. Ask them who their vet is, phone their vet and say, is he a good client? Is it their pups?
While price tags for some designer breeds can reach as high as £3,000, the true cost of unknowingly buying pups raised in appalling conditions is much higher. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News.
The stories in the West, and a 25-year-old has appeared in court charged with the murder of a 35-year-old man in Greenock. Michael Beaton was found on Drumfrochel Road near St Patrick's Primary on the 26th of November with serious injuries. Alexander Paul McQuillan appeared in Paisley Sheriff Court earlier today, charged with murder and theft. He made no plea and has been remanded in custody. Police are looking to speak to 5 men as they investigate alleged culpable and reckless behaviour at the Scottish Cup final at Hampden. Officers are investigating a number of incidents from the game on June the 3rd, where Celtic won the trophy after beating Inverness Caledonian Thistle. The first trains have been running from Ayr railway station since a fire gutted the nearby derelict station hotel. ScotRail has started operating a limited timetable with shuttle services running to and from Prestwick town every half an hour. 3 teenagers were arrested and charged in connection with the fire in September. Hundreds of workers at the Falkirk-based bus manufacturer Alexander Dennis Limited have walked out in a pay dispute. Around 400 members of the Unite Union are striking, including coach builders and spray painters, as well as GMB members. The action is due to go on for 2 weeks, as Courtney Cameron reports.
It may be 3 weeks until Christmas, but workers at Alexander Dennis are putting the festivities on hold for the next fortnight in the hope they'll get the pay rise they want. Hundreds of employees have walked out after rejecting pay offers of under 5% for this year and next.
When we went into these talks at the start of March, inflation was running around 10%. It's granted it's came down, but we still think the offer is quite low. When you remember that in Alexander Dennis, only 18% of their costs go in wages. So it ain't the guys that's draining, it's not the workers that's draining any finances from the company. I think Alexander Dennis is very important to the Scottish economy and to Scotland. I mean, they're high-class bus manufacturers, highly skilled workforce, and really this is the Rolls-Royce of buses you get when you buy for here.
Alexander Dennis is the biggest bus manufacturer in the UK and recently won a £40 million contract from the Scottish Government to build a fleet of electric Enviro 400 buses. Its manufacturing depot in Camlin has been in operation for decades, but this year its production has expanded to another site. Over 150 new electric vehicle buses are currently being built here in Larbert. Up until earlier this year, this site was solely the company's office headquarters, but now it's an expanding production facility that was due to be officially opened by the First Minister next week. But if the strikes continue, the workers say they doubt the new fleet will be ready to leave the production line at the start of next year as planned. Workers here are also striking.
For them to take a step like this so near Christmas shows how solid they are to see this through.
No one from Alexander Dennis was available for an interview, but in a statement, the company said it's extremely disappointed the industrial action has gone ahead and says every measure has been taken over the past few years to retain as many highly skilled jobs as possible. Courtney Cameron, STV News, Falkirk.
Rama is here with the sport and looking ahead to the Euros in Germany.
Here's a bold prediction, John. You're going to be using that line quite a lot in the next few months. And wasn't it great getting that email about our flights and hotel accommodation being booked?
Yours?
Yes. Somebody didn't get it.
Of course it was.
Of course it didn't. The phrase comes to mind, if your name's not down, you're not getting in. Good evening. After Scotland landed an exciting Scotland even, I'm very excited. An exciting draw for next summer's Euros. Steve Clarke's side can make history and reach the knockout stages, so says Stephen O'Donnell, who played at the last finals. As fans clamour to get to Germany, many options are being explored, as Jamie Borthwick now reports.
Try and fly, but if we can't fly, it's change planes and automobiles.
I would like to do it in the proper old school way, if a bunch of the guys together get an old camper van.
It's huge, so yeah, I would love to be there.
See if you can't get flights, you can just go through the Euro tunnel, but I feel like it'll all be worth it. It doesn't matter how long, we've waited for this experience for ages and we're finally going to get it.
The path is set and the Tartan Army know that Munich and that plum tournament opener against the hosts is destination number one. The Scots then travel back north to face Switzerland in Cologne before the group stage finale in Stuttgart with Hungary the opponents.
It will be the biggest en masse accumulation of Scotland fans there's ever been. There's a mass exodus of people just wanting to be there. I think it's going to be quite spectacular, and as I say, when there's a party going to happen, Scotland fans have to be there.
But what we are finding is really struggling to get flights, especially direct flights out of Scotland to the destinations. You think Germany's just literally, very close at hand, but the connectivity into Germany is not great from Scotland. So sadly, we've been looking at Manchester, Liverpool, but yeah. So fingers crossed that the airlines come up with some more flights. That would be great.
And Germany is ready to receive the tens of thousands of Scots who will make the journey.
We are thrilled to be hosting the Euro 2024 next year in Germany, and we're absolutely excited that the opening match will be between Germany and Scotland. We look forward to welcoming fans from Scotland and all around the world to this amazing sporting event.
You have to give me time to look at the teams and balance out. Give me time to watch some videos, some matches. Obviously, I've been concentrating on the games that we play.
Scotland ended a 23-year wait to reach a major finals by qualifying for Euro 2020. But can they create history and reach the knockout stages for the first time?
I think the Hungarian team qualified first, Switzerland obviously second, so they're two strong sides, and the Germans will be a wee bit unknown because obviously not with the qualifiers, but look, I think we've got a right good chance. If we play and compete the way we can against the good sides, I think we'll have a real good chance of qualifying and making history.
Stormed out, Brendan Rodgers has drawn a line under his angry half-time team talk in Perth, which by his own admission was the angriest he has ever been. As he prepares Celtic's match against Hibs on Wednesday night, Rodgers has told players who haven't featured in his squad he wants them to stand out in training. Here's something to chew on. Brendan Rodgers accused his Celtic players of being soft, going through the motions and being bullied at McDermott Park, and he let them know in an angry half-time team talk.
Every now and then you just need a reminder that Celtic's a club where you don't go through the motions, either as a staff member or a player, and we went through the motions in the first half. So for whatever reason that was, we needed to be better. When you're a top team, it's about working very hard, and we failed to do that in the first half yesterday. And when you don't do that, then you can get punished.
Rodgers' talk had the desired effect. Celtic fought back from a goal down to win 3-1. Matt O'Reilly was amongst the goal scorers, and the midfielder says taking Pilates helped him score the second goal.
My first thought after it went in was actually, sounds weird, but how stable I felt in my body, and I think that's as a result of a lot of the Pilates I've been doing.
Apart from scoring goals, how else do you find it beneficial?
What, the Pilates?
Aye.
all sorts. I think it helps with injury prevention. I think it helps with just general stability on the pitch. If you want to protect the ball from someone, feeling more stable, feeling more balanced, more robust. So loads of factors.
Summer recruits Mike Nawrocki and Gustav Lagerbielke once again failed to make the matchday squad for a Premiership game. A reminder from the Celtic manager what he expects from players at training.
What always takes my attention is training. You know, I'm out there every day watching training, and when I see players train and work with that personality, then they'll always edge the way closer to my thinking.
Nick Montgomery says his players put in a real team performance as Hibs made it 3 wins in a row at the weekend, and after Hearts went one better with 4 league victories in a row. Stephen Naismith praised his players for coming out on top in what he says was an ugly encounter at Kilmarnock. The Tynecastle side moved up to 3rd in the league thanks to Will Dennis's own goal at Rugby Park, while Dylan Vente and Will Fish got the goals against Aberdeen at Easter Road. England women's manager Serena Wiegman says there is no chance Scotland will give away the game when the sides meet at Hampden in the Nations League tomorrow. The Scots need to lose to their arch rivals for Team GB to have any chance of playing at the Olympics next summer. But Wiegman insists the Scottish Olympic hopefuls will still be desperate to win the match.
If you have seen our group, and if you have seen Scotland, and if you know the history Scotland-England, then there's no way that they are going to give away this game. They really want to beat England, and we want to beat them, of course. So, yes, there's such a rivalry that that's absolutely not going to be the case.
Rugby and Glasgow Warriors coach Pete Murchie says they should see themselves as contenders when they enter European Champions Cup action this week. Warriors welcome Northampton Saints to Scotstoun on Friday night.
The place we are in the league, the amount of internationals that we have across the board, who play in World Cups, who play in Six Nations every year. We've got lots of guys aspiring to be in that, and I'm sure will be at some stage. So there shouldn't be a fear factor or an inferiority complex around playing at this level. Guys play at this level every year.
And that, folks, is all your sport tonight. See you again tomorrow.
Thanks, Rama. Now here's Sean with the weather forecast.
A spell of sea air will be followed by a strong chance of you have to try these. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
A very good evening to you. Still in the cold air for the time being. Not quite as chilly as it has been recently, mind you, because we've had those showers around today, some rain and sleet showers, snow over higher ground. But the temperature's really boosted a little bit later on the week. You can see that green shade of colours coming in. However, when I say boosted, I mean temperatures just returning to roughly where they should be for the time of year. Mind you, temperatures could get into double figures, parts of the Hebrides, a little bit later on this week. But for the time being, we've still got some cold weather to get out of the way the next couple of days. Tonight, chilly night, but a very, very cold night to come again tomorrow night before we start to see that change. Now, we'll still hang on to cloud and showers across likes of Lanarkshire, Glasgow, and also around Ayrshire, the borders, through much of the night. Shower outbreaks of rain here, but later on the night, once that clears away, those temperatures getting down to around freezing, so it could be quite icy to start with tomorrow, especially in central and southern parts where we've seen most of those showers. Further north, we'll get the lowest temperatures overnight. But tomorrow it should be a dry day, a sunny day, with those temperatures barely above freezing, 2-3 degrees Celsius in many spots, and falling sharply as the sun sets tomorrow afternoon. So it will be very, very cold tomorrow night. Temperatures possibly -3 to -5 fairly widely. But then on Wednesday we'll see rain and sleet coming in from the west, along with strong winds, heavy snow over higher ground for a time before that milder air starts to move in. But by the time we get to Thursday, temperatures rising up to highs of around 9 or 10 degrees, possibly turning colder again, though, next week. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
OK, that's all from us tonight.
From all of us here, thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.
Good night.